Welcome, everyone, to Little Steps Live. I'm your host, Shay Stanley, and today we're exploring a crucial topic for expat parents: what top universities in the real world want and how to prepare your child right now. We're excited to have Justin Kirby. Hey, Justin.
Hello.
As well as Leslie Tam. Hey, Leslie.
Hi.
So we're going to tell you a little bit about these folks over at XCL, and they're going to introduce themselves further. But let me just tell you a little bit about Justin and Leslie. Justin is a dedicated educator with extensive experience, having taught across multiple continents. He's passionate about guiding students to success and navigating the challenges of modern education. We also have Leslie Tam, who is head of college counseling at XCL World Academy. Certainly the right person to share all these insights and trends today. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you landed at XCL and into this topic.
Well, sure. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you very much. Sometimes it's nice to reflect with an introduction like that, to just remember where I've been. I started from Canada. That's where I'm originally from. I moved to England and immediately thought international education is where I want to be. And from there, it's just a laundry list. I moved to Australia. And then, of course, after that, it was South Korea. Then I was adventurous, moved to Sudan, followed by Thailand. And for the last 9 years, I've been in the UAE and now here in Singapore, and couldn't be happier. Love it here. So I'm enjoying the opportunity, the challenges, the students, and yes, the environment. The desert was getting a bit hot and I love seeing green trees now.
God, you really have been all over the place. Well, it's nice that you've landed in a place that you're loving. Leslie, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm actually originally from the United States. I'm from Maryland, very close to DC. I'm going to talk about this a bit later, but I actually did the IB diploma myself as a kid, years and years and years ago. I have spent a lot of time. I did my undergrad in the United States and then my graduate school also in the United States, then moved to China. And then right after, I was part of setting up 2 new schools in Shanghai and then in Ningbo. Then moved to Hong Kong, where I was for 6 years, helping to set up a new school out there as well. Then moved to Singapore 12 years ago. I'm a PR now. I was part of setting up another school here in Singapore's college counseling department. And then have been at XCL World Academy for the past 4 years.
Okay, and you're helping students find their next future in university selection, which is a big job.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got some key topics to dive in today. And again, for those that just jumped in and joined us, just a reminder of the topic that we're talking about. This is what top universities and the real world want and how to prepare your child now. So before we dive into our first topic, I just want to put out a few reminders just so everybody knows that this is a webinar. This is a live show. So feel free to interact, ask your questions. If you are seeing this after we do go live, feel free to put your questions in as well. And we will have our experts get back to you on those questions as well. So don't make it stop. I'm sure if you've got questions, put them in there. As far as the other reminders, I've got some things to note on XCL's side. One of which is they have a great giveaway. We've got summer coming up around the corner here. And as we know, summer camps in Singapore are very competitive and very expensive, a lot of them. So you guys have been so generous to donate a summer camp, which is one XCL Camp voucher worth Singapore $650 to one of the visitors to this webinar today. And all you have to do is just ask a question right below, or make a comment, and we will be selecting that next week. So thank you so much for donating that. And we'll talk a little bit more about the summer camps later on in the show. The other thing just to note is that there are 2 open days, which I will be sharing as well, but they are coming up in May 21st, as well as June 4th. And so you can join in if you like what you hear, if you want to talk a little bit more with Leslie and Justin as well, come to the open days. All right, so let's dive in, shall we? All right, so the first topic, let me just pop that up there, is, very importantly, understanding what top universities want. So let's just start that off. What do you feel that top universities want from students in today's competitive landscape?
That's a great question. Of course, I think naturally most families and even students think the first and foremost is top quality grades, having the highest marks, the top scores, but it's more than that now. Universities are starting to see an importance on soft skills. We're thinking about curiosity, initiative, leadership, and I think one of the most difficult yet important pieces that universities are looking for is how a student has demonstrated impact. And that's tricky for adults too. We can say we did all of these things, but how do we say that it had an impact? How do we know that? How do we measure that? And so I do believe that universities are really interested in seeing how the student has found their passions and their interests and already started to do something with it in the community or for themselves or others, because that is really what could help that student stand out compared to others who may all have equal good grades, but what makes you different? What sets you apart? And I think that's something to consider.
I think that's very good. Leslie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I was going to say, totally 100% agree with the things that Justin just mentioned. I think the second part of this is it's not enough just to be doing those things, right? Because at the end of the day, it's also about how are you writing about those things? How are you presenting yourself? Because you can be doing all those really cool things, but if you're not able to articulate that well in an essay or articulate that well in an application, I'm sorry, but nobody knows that you're doing those things, right? So I think that the second piece is about understanding what is asked for you on an application and understanding how to write about something. And when I say that, I don't mean like, cheating the system or trying to figure out a way to lie about anything. Nothing like that, but just knowing how to best present yourself in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And this is just a side question, but every university is quite different, right? I assume that your job as well is to steer the kids into the right direction, but also communicate that impact and the follow-up questions and presentation in the right way for the right school.
Yeah, so I get this a lot because I think there's a lot of families that are, they ask me like, what extracurricular activities should we be doing at grade 9, at grade 8, at grade 7? And I think something that's really important to understand is that actually, besides the United States, which reviews applications holistically, which means that they look at things outside of grades, the majority of other systems are still very much grades-based. So Australia, the UK, to a certain extent, Singapore. And so, while yes, obviously extracurricular activities are good in and of themselves, and I always tell kids I think it's important to be doing those, when it comes to actually talking about assessment and admissions assessment, really it's just the United States that will really look more heavily at those kinds of activities.
Okay. And how do you envision like a personalized approach to education enhancing the student's university's application?
Actually, my role as senior head of student achievement and academic pathways, I think plays a bit of a role in that. It's a new role this year, but what we've identified here at XCL World Academy is there are these other ways for students to highlight what they can do, and personalized pathways is one of those. I speak about a student who's trying to become an engineer. If you are applying to a university, that university knows you are dedicated, you're committed, if you have those high school courses lined up that already lend themselves nicely to engineering. So physics or maybe high-level mathematics. And what we want to do is ensure that our pathways are developed in such a way that it supports our students to achieve whatever it is that they're trying to do. Now, there's always limitations in every school. We can't have all pathways for all people, but we certainly have a vast breadth and depth is what we're really trying to get here. We are able to provide those mathematic classes, the sciences, chemistry, biology, and as we'll, I hope, get to later, we're going to certainly talk about future-ready skills, technology, and AI. But what we can do is provide those opportunities for students so that they can get those courses, start to develop a knowledge base and build a foundation for their advancement after after high school.
Excellent. Yes. Do you have anything to add, Leslie?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so Justin talked about the personalized pathway, sort of the curriculum piece. I would say the other part is really the personalized approach. So this is a really, really important time in kids' lives, right? They're really stressed out. Their parents are very stressed out. They're teenagers and they just want to be teenagers. But at the same time, they have that sort of competition, or not competition, but sort of that pressure to, what should I be studying? What kind of courses should I be doing? Do I need to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life? And I think that those are all sort of questions that I've worked with teenagers for years now that I see happening. And I think for us at Excel World Academy, what I'm super excited about for us is that we have a lot of dedicated time with the kids. So our counselor student ratio is 21 to 25. And so I have 2 full-time counselors on our staff, and we work with our students. We're full-time, so we don't teach, and we work with them ever since they're in grade 10. We also do optional meetings in grade 8 and grade 9. So we really get to know the families really well to really understand their growth. And as you all probably know out there who have teenagers, I mean, they literally change their mind like a month later, maybe even like a week later. And so I think really being on that journey with them to help them see their growth is also really cool for me. Yeah.
I have to jump in there. I have to give credit to Leslie and her team. As you heard at the beginning, I've been to quite a few places, and this is the first school I've seen with such a low ratio. And it's a testament to the work they do, but also the importance that this school puts on that developing that personalized approach. And Leslie, you do a great job. I just wanted to say that.
That's good to hear. So I have to ask this question. I know this is the one that all the parents want to ask, but how early do parents start with the preparation for the whole university process?
I think that's a great question. In fact, talking to Leslie about this earlier, I was asking myself that. My daughter's in grade 5 and grade 3. And so I view this in 2 ways. 1, as a parent, and 2, as a professional. As a parent, I'm mostly thinking that she's going to get really good at a sport or something wonderful so she can get a scholarship and we can save some money. But I have no idea what she wants to do yet. She doesn't know. And I think from that perspective, I think what's really valuable, if you have younger children, I think it's exposure, really exposing your child to as much as you can of the world. That's extracurricular activities, it's sport, it's art, drama, theater, AI, coding, whatever it is. The more exposure they have, the deeper and of an understanding of what they might be passionate about. And that really helps them kind of hone in on something. And as much as I say that, I have to be honest, as soon as I got into university, I started computer software engineering and immediately said, nope, this isn't for me, and switched into education. So I say that, but we all know people change their minds. Adults do, children do. But in this case, I would say really exposing your children to as much as possible so that they can really have a better understanding of not just what their passions are and strengths are, but how everything else is connected. I think that's the best step for families with young children.
Okay, good insight. And Leslie, do you have anything to add on
so
that?
I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old, so even younger. And sometimes I put on my college counseling hat and I'm like, are you guys doing enough stuff? Like, are you guys going to be okay? But I think one of the things that's really important to remember is just that it's, you know, in and of itself, I think it's not only just about building the profile, right? It's also about developing their interests, because they're going to be holistic, interesting people. And that's what we really want, right? So I think number 1 is trying to think of it not as like this result that we're trying to do, right? Just to get into university, just to get some scholarship, or even just for some job. It's about the fact that you've got years, you know, if you're lucky, and, you know, what kind of person do you want to be? So I think that's my first thing. I think the other thing is, really thinking about just like asking the question about why. So I think it's important, the exposure of like the different things that kids want to do, whether that be sports or dance or starting up a student club. But I think the question is also getting the kids to think about, well, why do you like that? And when you did those 2 different activities, what did you like about the one over the other, right? I think in our society, there's a lot of focus on being a leader, you know, like who's going to be the leader of the club, who's going to be the president of the club. But I think what's also important is to know that it's really important to have good teammates. And so, you know, I think it's thinking about those things, right? Like some kids are yeah, they're great at organizing. They're great to be the kids that do the leaders. But there's also some kids that are not great at public speaking, but they're very good at other things, and they can definitely play a role in being a teammate. So I don't know. I think for me, what I really want to make clear to my families and my students is that, all of those roles are important. It's not just about that one title that you're putting on your application.
I think that's really good insight, because I think all three of us came through the generation of that pressure to be that number one or the captain of the X, Y, and Z. And you are right. And we'll talk a little bit more about the IB curriculum, but that curriculum is so focused on the well-rounded and playing the teammate approach. And you do need all people on the team. So yeah. I think it's a really important message, and it's nice to see universities looking at that as well. So I want to just dive into this topic. It's become more and more of a hot topic, even since the days of COVID. But the well-being side, and especially from a parent's point of view, our readers are based in Asia. They're sending their kids overseas, very far away in many times, and the well-being is such a hot topic. What importance would you say is the emotional well-being in the context of university readiness of the children?
Yeah, I think actually we spoke about this recently too, Leslie. You had a really great, you had some great insight into stress and the feeling of student readiness, students maybe entering into a university that while it might be their passion, they might not be ready for that, not level of rigor, but that level of pressure. And I think you had a great way of explaining how a student understanding, who they are is important, knowing who they are as a person, but more about applying to the right university that fits your well-being philosophy. Leslie, did you want to share a little bit about what you spoke to me about? It was quite, I thought it was quite relevant.
Yeah, I was also talking about high school too, because I think that there's also a bit of a frenzy to decide, if I want to go to X university, which high school should I be choosing to make sure that we're making the right choices, right? So I guess my first point would be that I don't think that there's like right and wrong choices. I tell my families this all the time. You can get to the same destination in multiple ways. And I don't think that it's like you have to do X, Y, Z. There's multiple ways to get there. There's so much flexibility. But what I was saying is that I think that it's important for families to know their children well, because every kid is different. Every kid is on a different journey, and every kid will mature at a different state. And so I think that some kids, they may do really well in places that are more focused, more competitive, or have that sort of academic pressure. They will do better, but other kids will crumble. And that's why it's really, really important, I think, to know your kid well and to really listen to them. If they tell you, like, I want to be in a smaller school, or I want to be in a smaller community, because ultimately that will serve them better, not just in high school, but also in university and then in life.
It's very good. Very good. Well, those are my key topics in this. I just want to ask our readers if you have any other questions around understanding what top universities are looking for, specifically before we move into topic number 2. Okay, so we have one specifically on how does XCL World Academy help students develop these essential qualities that we talked about? It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a great question, and I wonder how much time we have. I think I'll try and keep this one short, but I'm passionate about this one. As I said, I've experienced a lot of different schools and curriculum, and XCL World Academy is doing something right here. Again, my daughters go to this school, and it took them one day to feel a sense of belonging, find a friend, and be able to walk home on their own, which we were hoping they might have been able to do after about 5 months or 6 months. So I think what XCL does well, we have, of course, a holistic approach through the IB, but lots of schools have the IB. How do we do it that's different? How do we do it that's special and unique? Well, we certainly focus on global citizenship, I think, in a broader way than many other schools do. We focus on perspectives in our units of inquiry. We have specific community events that really allow us to share stories and come together and have that sense of belonging and community. Well-being is at the forefront. We do have our own programs that we use to survey students on a very frequent basis so that we have a touch point on how they're feeling. We can generate themes for different topics, whether it's belonging, friendship, or even down to how much sleep some of our students are getting. As they answer these questions, we can develop data and target our students. If we notice there's something going on with the grade 6s, they're starting to sleep less, we might be able to pull that group together, have one of our deans of learning speak to them and find out what's going on, and maybe we can address that with specific sleep habits that we can build up for them. So we do a lot, and again, I could go on for a long time, but that's just a few of the things that we do here to ensure that our students are really not just prepared academically, but holistically as well.
And if I could just jump in to talk a little bit about our guidance program, because I'm super passionate about this part of it. So what I really love, and I talked a little bit about this with our community, but our community is super diverse and super holistic. And what I mean by that is that we have kids that are super ambitious academically. We've had a student who got into Dartmouth last year, a kid who had a full scholarship to Wesleyan University. One of our kids got into law just recently for London School of Economics. But we also have those kids that are, still trying to find themselves and trying to figure out, like, I'm not really sure what I want to study, Miss Tam. What should I be doing? And I love that they're so different, that there's not like one type of kid, that they're all very, very different, and that you have that mix of students. And that's my favorite part about being at the school. But the other part is just that we start working with them relatively early. So we have these optional meetings with kids in grade 8 and grade 9. And when I think about this, when we first started this program, actually grade 8 is a little young for kids to be, they're not really thinking about this stuff. And so with the students, we actually do a lot more career stuff, getting them to think about what are the careers out there, right? And so we bring in parents, they talk about their backgrounds, how they got there, and then we offer them optional meetings. So for those kids that do want to have those questions, they can come and speak to us. And then more importantly, I think we offer those meetings to parents, because I think at that age, it's really the parents who really want to understand the bigger picture so that they can work with their kids. And then in grade 10, it's really about subject selection. So we do 2 meetings a year with the student and also with the family. And we talk about their pathways, how they're doing in school, what are their possible careers and subjects they might want to study, and really putting them on a path to success. Whether that be the high school diploma or IB diploma. And then grade 11 and 12, this is my favorite part, we actually have scheduled university guidance classes as part of our curriculum, which is very rare. So I have dedicated time once every 2 weeks with my grade 11s and my grade 12s. And what that means is in grade 11, I can use that whole year to do exposure. Just what are different universities? What are different majors? What are different careers? How do you write a resume? And so we do all of that. And then by grade 12, it's really crunch time. I'm really able to work with them and be like, okay, you 10 are applying to Common App today. We're applying to the US today. You 8, you're applying to UK today. And we actually do it together. And so it's great because I really have that dedicated time to do group work, but then also work with them one-on-one.
Wow. You guys do a lot. It's very impressive. I just am thinking about just the timeline and the like you said, the personalized approach. And it is phenomenal. And these kids are getting a lot of help along the way, but in a very positive way, as you mentioned. So that's fantastic. So I think that answered that question. So we're going to move into, and by the way, I love the passion. Both of you guys are very passionate about your jobs and just, it seems like you've also got a lot of flexibility to really mold what that passion is into the job itself, which is rare in itself as well. So that's great to see. So we are going to move into the second topic, which is all about the IB curriculum, understanding how it prepares students for the future success, specifically in university. For those that just joined us, I'm just going to shoot up a few reminders. We are here with XCL World Academy. We are talking all about university and the real world and how to prepare your kids for that success. We just covered overview of what makes, what universities are really looking for. We're now going to move into the IB side. And just a few reminders, they've got a couple of open days coming up. So I'm just going to pop those up there, but it's May 21st and June 4th. And you can find out, meet the teachers, get some more success stories, and really see the school, which is always very helpful. And then the other thing that I want to mention is they have a giveaway specifically for summer camps. They're doing 1 voucher. All you have to do is pop a comment and our question regarding this webinar into the chat below, and you will hopefully win. So yeah, we are going to move into the next topic. And so the importance of IB curriculum for future success. So this is our next topic. So How does the IB curriculum set students up for success in university? Big question, big topic.
It is. I think what's unique about the IB is that it's kind of a framework. So what I mean by that is it's not a standalone curriculum per se. It's a framework. So you can see IB schools that subscribe to British curriculum, IB schools that subscribe to American curriculum. There's still those curricular standards that need to be taught. But really what the IB does is it provides a really nice framework to develop that holistic child. So for example, in the IB, we have these approaches to learning, which are really the skills necessary to be successful academically. So things like research, communication, or thinking, especially critical or creative thinking. These skills are explicitly taught and at times even assessed because those are the things that make you successful in all academic subjects, but also in life. So it does explicitly have that within its framework. Also, the learner profile teaches you really how to be a well-rounded individual. So to be an inquirer, are you asking the right questions? Are you asking questions? You can be a risk taker, of course, cautiously, and you learn and teach young children what it means to be a risk taker, but it's about really opening your mind and having a different perspective on things. And of course, the idea of key concepts in our units allows all students to be able to identify through lines between all subjects. Everything is connected, and having a key concept where they hear about form, function, or causation in science, and then they're often individuals and societies hearing about that same concept, they link those two together and they can really understand how everything is connected. So there's a lot more, but overall, I think that's one of the unique pieces that the IB offers that I don't think you really see in a lot of other curriculum.
That's a good answer. Leslie, did you have anything else to add on that?
I was just going to talk. Well, I was going to talk more about the IB diploma and just from my personal experience. So I mentioned this before, but I was part of the first cohort at my high school in Maryland to offer the IB diploma. And I have to say it was transformative. I think up until then, I just found school really boring. I found the classes really boring. I felt like everything was super Americentric. Like we didn't learn anything about international. And being an IB was great. Like all of a sudden, just everything came alive to me. You know, like history was just about different parts of the world. And then like literature, we learned about different novelists and different poets. And then, you know, economics, we learned about like the policy, but then we also learned about like how it affected like exchange rates and tariffs. And it was just so international and so relevant. And then of course, my favorite, which other people who've done the IB probably won't say this, but my favorite class was actually theory of knowledge. So that class is actually part of the core, which is, so that's IB diploma is the 6 subjects plus the core, which is theory of knowledge, creativity, activity, and service, and the extended essay, which is a 4,000-word research paper. So TOK was my favorite class. It's a class that really gets you to think about, it's like a philosophy class, but really gets you to think about why do you know what you know? And I still remember my teacher putting this chair, you know, in the middle of the classroom and then being like, how do you know that this is a chair? And we're all like, what? And, you know, but it was the whole point was like, how do you know what you know? Like your notions about anything, like, how do you know that that's what you actually know? And I just loved the challenge of the program. It's also incredibly rigorous. People who've done the IB diploma probably talk about this a lot, but the extended essay, the 4,000-word research paper, is incredibly intense. I remember I was 17, spending like weekends in the University of Maryland library, looking at like comparative literature documents. And it really sets you up for success for university because everything else just becomes really easy. Like you're just like, wow, like I don't have to take as many classes. I don't have to do this anymore. And so I really do think it's a wonderful curriculum to set kids up for success in university.
It's good. It's good that you've got that. I did not do the IB program. My children are doing the IB program, and it is amazing how different it is. But just that well-rounded child approach and that international, the curiosity, and like you said, the passion. It's really interesting to watch. So we talked a little bit about that personalized learning in the context of the last topic, but specifically in the framework of IB, how do you feel personalized learning within the IB framework supports the individual student goals?
Yeah, that's interesting. As the IB offers a lot of different DP courses, so that's grade 11 and 12. And really what we think about is pathways. So is it an option? Is it personalized because they can choose what courses to take? Is it personalized because the teacher's instructional approach or the strategies they use? So it's a bit of a mix. So if I'm speaking on a broad scale, it can be personalized because in the IB DP, you are choosing your focus, right? You're saying, you know what, I'm looking to be a doctor. I want biology, I want chemistry. But then you also have a choice to say, do I want SL or HL, standard level or high level? So there are some options in regards to personalizing your pathway. By that point, deciding I want to be focused on this faculty of medicine, or I'm looking to become a pre-med student. So there are those options, but I think what's interesting too is assuming a child has gone through the entire IB continuum, they've done a lot with metacognition, so understanding what they think and why they think, and if they're in the TOK classes as well, that they're really thinking about that. But personalized pathways or personalized approaches can also mean the student has agency in that. Within the way that they work, they could be demonstrating their knowledge in different ways for the teacher to possibly assess in internal assessments, right? So what that means is a student might have realized or developed a skill with writing or developed a skill with coding, where instead of making a slide deck and presenting to the class, they've made a documentary because they love film and they've got a passion in that. So personalized can mean a lot of different things, but for my 2 cents in this short amount of time, that's how I kind of view it. There's multiple ways to view personalized from the student's perspective, from the teacher in the way they strategize and differentiate for the students, and then of course for the program in which courses they take.
Excellent. So I wanted to just chat a little bit about future ready skills, because those are always hot topics. AI, literacy, robotics, coding, all these fun things. Can you tell us a little bit about how does XCL approach these future ready skills, including AI literacy?
Yeah, that is, I think that's a really big question. And again, you talked about passion, and I will do my very best to keep this at bay, but we're very excited here at XCL World Academy because of what we've done with AI. And we truly think that we are leading the way in this globally. And that's not just our opinion. We've been reaching out to experts to work with, and they are saying the same thing, that we're kind of doing something unique here. So I want to pat us on the back a little bit, but also explain what that means. So it's navigating the unknown. AI has changed so quickly and so rapidly that we know it's not important for students to understand specific tools all of the time, because those tools are already changing and it's something else. There's something greater. There's more of a conceptual understanding that's needed when it comes to AI. We've partnered with a company called SureStart and Dr. Tanya Mishra, the CEO and founder. So we've developed an in-house grade 6 program developed around AI. And what I think is interesting and sets us apart as a school is because of our connection with these experts, we've understood that it isn't enough to use the tools. These students, because it's a powerful tool, need to know a little bit more before they get their hands on it. So the first unit in this everyday program called SureStart is about ethics and leadership, and really truly understanding the ethical implications for what AI is and will be, because what it is to these grade 6s now, it will be very different by the time they're in grade 12. We're not even talking about university yet. So we have to put that first so they can understand what's most important. And we talk about that holistic approach and understanding other people's perspectives. We can't just have AI doing the work. We need them to understand what it is and how to use it. So what we've done actually is started to expand that Next year we'll be offering a grade 7 robotics course that uses AI as well. So this cohort of students will be moving up each year with something new and exciting. And next year it will be creative explorations with robots and AI. And we don't stop there. It has been a success, this program. So we've rolled this out for our younger students as well, for KG2 to grade 5, where we're creating something called the Accelerate program, where one of the 6 pillars in this program will be related to AI. And I want to make sure everyone feels comfortable. This does not mean we provide iPads to KG2 students and have them doing coding. That is the opposite of what we're trying to do. As I mentioned, we've been highly touted by some of these experts for the way that we've rolled out AI. So what does that mean for a KG2 student? They're not learning how to code. They're learning how to ask thoughtful questions. Now, why is that AI education? All of us have put in a prompt, right? We put in our prompt, we want to get the right information, and without knowing how to ask the right question, we can't get that information. So KG2 students will be learning how to ask wonderful questions and how to get the information they need. It doesn't mean they're behind a screen all day. As they work their way up to grade 5, they will have a very good foundation for when they enter the MYP in our grade 6 year. And then they're taking off with the Sure Start program, robotics in grade 7, and so on. We've worked with these experts to develop our school's AI policy, which includes things like ethics, ways of use for students and teachers, and even a glossary for terms that AI is starting to generate new terms, and it has a different meaning for people. So we need to understand the same vocabulary. Something as simple as discriminative AI. If you aren't sure what that means in the AI realm, you might have a different opinion. It just means you can take pictures of a bunch of different things, use your teachable machine, scan it, and it'll tell you that's a cup or that's a fork, because it's discriminating the images. It doesn't mean what we think discrimination often means. So it's important that our community understands what these vocabulary words mean. But our AI program, the students have enjoyed. We have had a group called the Earth Guardians who have developed an app to help combat climate change and inform people. That was a result of the Makeathon after the end of the Sure Start program. And I could go on, but I think we're really doing it right here by implanting that ethical piece first for our students and teachers.
I guess that's a lot of the questions that, I think the kids pick up AI and all these future ready skills quite quickly. But a lot of the battle, especially for teachers and schools, is educating the parents. And just having that ethics first is very reassuring, I think, especially because a lot of people don't get it. The kids are getting it. The parents need a little bit longer uptick. So that's great. And it's nice to see that the passion, it's not going away, right? It's only growing, all these skills. So in terms of this particular topic, that's a wrap up of these questions. So we are going to move into the next topic. But before I do, I just want to open it up. We are live, so please do ask any questions that you might have on the IB curriculum or anything that might be relevant to this topic before we move into the next topic. Do we have any questions out there? Okay. So my child is not heavily academic. You mentioned supporting children's passions for those students. How do you do that at XCL World Academy?
How do we support passions? Yeah, great question. We have a robust extracurricular activity program. So obviously you think about after school. We run our sports programs, we have art programs. I will say we also have one of the best theater programs I've ever seen. There is so much available for students at every age level, which I think is wonderful. My daughters, of course, have entered into the musical to join the play. They do crafting and arts in the library. So there's everything that you can imagine and more. So I think what we do a great job of is that exposure that I was talking about earlier. We're trying to provide those opportunities for students, but also We do have those camps as well in the summer, so students can explore their passions, and hopefully someone today will be able to experience that as well.
Fantastic. We have one more question on this topic. What advice do you have for parents looking for at a future-ready school?
Future-ready school, I think, is something that we don't just put on a sign here. We embed that. We talk about shaping next now. And I think we're doing that. So when you are looking for a future-ready school, look beyond the technology, look beyond the flashy devices and all of the resources, and ask them how they're using it. It's easy to look on a school's website and see something beautiful and say, oh, wow, look at that. But are they using it, and how are they using it? How are the students impacted? I mentioned impact earlier. I think that's important. So as a parent, I would say ask those questions. We're in a really lucky position here where we do have those big, fancy, fresh facilities, our brand new innovation hub, 5 stories with a digital media lab and VR treadmills and VR headsets. We've got it all. But we also have a small group of students, just about 1,000 in our school, and personalized pathways. So we know our students. We're a mid-sized school, but we do have all the bells and whistles, and we're also using those resources in an effective way. So again, if anyone has questions, I would please ask you to come see our school. It's the best way to get a true understanding of what it is here. You'll be very impressed, I'm certain.
I also just want to jump in here because Justin and I were discussing this the other day, right? There is so much about AI and the future of AI, but at the same time, we do focus on the soft skills because, AI can write your resume, AI can write your cover letter, but can AI teach you to be on time when you go to a job interview? Can AI teach you to do a proper handshake? Can AI teach you how to look someone in the eye when you need to have that interview? And so I think that's the other piece of it, is just also reminding kids that this is also about like the human relationship. How do you develop those relationships? And so I was mentioning the class before in our grade 11 and grade 12, and that's kind of where we do a lot of that. But that's also a really important component for us.
Very good. The handshake. I remember that. Well, thank you so much. That is some fabulous tips and also insight in terms of how you approach the process in the IB curriculum with your students and the future ready skills, because they're coming in hot, aren't they? So we are going to move to the third topic, which is building the competitive university profile. This is going to have all the parents' ears ticked up because it's all going to be flowing down to the children as well. So I guess moving into this topic, let's discuss how parents can help their children build a competitive university profile. What are the key milestones in a child's education that parents should really focus in on?
I'll just jump in first a little bit here. Like I say, this is clearly Leslie's expertise area. But again, depending on the age of your child, clearly, literacy and numeracy skills early on are wonderful. That really allows access to developing stronger skills in all academic areas. And then like in middle school, really starting to explore who you are as a person, your identity, your interests. And then as you get into high school, grade 11, 10, up to grade 12, kind of choosing those academic pathways and aligning your passions with that. But I know, Leslie, this is really what you do on a daily basis. So I think you'll have a better answer than I.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've literally had a couple of parents that I've had meetings with just today and yesterday about this. I think what's really important, and this is my biggest thing, and after becoming a parent, this is even more important. I think the most important thing is to never make your kids feel like they're less than. I think that the most important thing is to help them realize that success can come in many different forms. It's not just about your job title or where you go to university or how much money you make. And I know that that's what society wants to tell us all the time, but I think it's really important for kids to just recognize that in and of yourself, in and of who you are, that is like special. And I know that sounds a bit like cheesy and maybe not fitting of the competition. But why I say that's important is because when it comes down to it, when kids start writing about themselves, when kids start really actually quote unquote competing in this process, it's really important that they know who they are, or that they start to know who they are. And I think that actually does come through when kids write in their essays, when kids interview. I think there are lots of private college counseling companies out there that teach kids, like prep kids for all of this, right? But you can see through it because they're kids. And so I think that having that core when their family accepts them for who they are and doesn't make them feel that what they care about is not okay, and really encourages them, I think that makes a big difference when you see them through this process. So I think that's really, really important. I guess the other point is thinking just about that they're normal adolescents. So I get this sort of anxiety a lot with parents, which is super normal because I think sometimes some of us forget that we were teenagers too. And I think, parents are like, oh my gosh, all of his friends or all of her friends know what they want to do. Is that weird that they don't have a major, that they don't know? And I'm like, they're 14. Like, of course they don't know. That's so normal. And I tell the kids that all the time too, right? If we speak to a cohort of grade 9 students, I bet you there's probably at max 1 or 2 kids that say that they quote unquote know what they want to do. And I bet you by next year that will change. And so there is no shame for kids in not knowing what they want to do, because that is the journey. And for me, I think that's the fun part, is like discovering what it is that you want to do. So I think the part that parents can really help kids is really get them to think about their strengths. And I think as a parent, you know your kid the best, right? You see when they're really engaged, when they're really excited, And I think it can be in things that you may not even you might not even notice. So, I just think about myself, right? And I think that I was always really good at bringing people together. But I guess for me, when I was growing up, I didn't see that as like a skill. It wasn't like I was good, like the star pianist or the star, soccer player or whatever. But I think as a parent, when you recognize those things about your kid, I think it's important to point that out to them because they're kids. So they don't know that that's special about them. That's all they've ever known is that's how they are, right? So I think just being able to help them in seeing those things, right? You're really good at that. I noticed that, you always make time for that person or whatever. Like, I think just, I don't know. I think just like helping them to see some of those strengths that are not just those tangible strengths, I think is really important. That helps them build upon what they might want to do later.
I tell you, we could do a whole webinar on that topic. I think a lot of parents could use some of that energy that you have and some of the tips, because it is so important, especially with confidence as well. So we have to talk about, when we're talking about the university profile, we have to talk about extracurricular activities. So how can extracurriculars enhance a student's university application? I know you mentioned US versus UK, but maybe just talk a little bit about extracurriculars there.
Do you want me to go ahead? Just I'll
go
go ahead. So I mentioned before that really the United States is the big one that really does the holistic review. But I want to also caution when I say this, because oftentimes I'll get kids be like, great, my grades can be terrible, but as long as I do all these cool things at school, I will get into Harvard. And I'm like, that's not really how it works. So I also want to remind everybody who is looking at selective universities that ultimately you still have to have really strong grades, because all the other kids are going to have really strong grades. So the extracurricular activities are adding to that, and of course important, but the grades are still going to be the most important thing, especially when we're talking about really selective universities. I think when it comes to extracurricular activities, I think it really comes down to interest, right? So I think what's important is, so I wouldn't tell students this, but I guess I would tell parents this, that the way that university admission officers would look at this is like, is there kind of a story there, right? So it's okay that kids like many different things. And I would say in grade 9 and 10, that's encouraged. They should do tons of different things, right? But probably by the time they're in grade 11, it would probably be better if they're honing down on 1 or 2 or 3 things that they really care about, because that's where they can show where they're using their time. On the common application for the US, they actually ask you how many hours per week are you doing that activity. And actually, you can only put 10 activities all the way from 9 to 12. So that's a really important tip to know as well. And so why do they ask you that? How many hours per week? They ask you that because they want to know how you spend your time. And a lot of families don't know this, but they also realize, like the colleges realize that some kids, they have to do housework. They have to take care of their little brother or sister. They don't have time to go out and do all these extracurricular activities. And that's also part of it. And kids can write that. They can write, I need to go babysit my little sister because mom is working all day. Dad and mom are working parents. And that is also how they spend their time. And that's what they want to know. How do you spend your time? And how will that translate into our university community? Because what they're looking for is they want to see how you fit into their community. So Yeah, so I get that a lot where parents will be like, well, which ones? So then which extracurriculars? And again, I'm not, I think it really comes down to the kid. I think that but if as much as kids can specialize as they get a little bit older, 11th and 12th grade, I think that shows focus and starts to show their passion.
Do you ever have children that have, they're moving through 9 and 10 year and they don't really have they want to go to the US, they want the extracurriculars, but they don't quite have, they haven't found it yet. How would you guide a family with a child like that?
And that happens all the time. And so it's so normal. And, and I want to normalize this because I think that a lot of times like parents and kids feel like, am I the only one? Like, is my kid supposed to know all this? Like, is my kid somehow a failure because they're not at XYZ at this point in time? It is so normal. And so it's really important, I think, to normalize that. So the way that we do it is that I like to work with the kids to really think about it, right? So I had a kid the other day who came in and told me he wanted to study veterinary science in Australia. And we kind of started talking about it. And it was interesting because he actually didn't seem that interested in veterinary science. And then as we started talking, he just mentioned like basketball. And then all of a sudden his like whole face changed. And he was like, talking about the Lakers and this point guard and that and the shots and statistics. And then all of a sudden he was like, actually, I really would love to do like sports statistics. And I just thought, this is so interesting that he came in to talk to me about veterinary science and schools for veterinary science. But actually, I don't think he likes it. So I think it's also just like that conversation with them, having that conversation with them. I think the question you said about the extracurriculars. So one thing I love about our community as well is that we have so much. I mean, I think maybe this is the innovative part of our school. I have tons of kids that are like, I want to kind of do this club, but it's not here. So they started. So as an example, we had kids here that wanted to learn about how to like do dissections of like brain sheets because they wanted to actually mimic what it might be to be in med school. So they started this thing here called the AIR Project. And so they basically wanted to teach other younger students about what it might be to be a medical student. And then they were dissecting sheep brains and different livers and all this stuff. And so I think that's really an opportunity for them too, where we brainstorm with them to say like, well, if we don't have it now, would you like to join it? Would you like to create something? Can you get a couple of your friends? And then let's look at what we could do. So yeah, I think that those are ways that we help them here at our school.
Okay. So you've answered a lot of the questions that I had around this topic. So we covered extracurriculars. We talked a bit about the parent-child, approach. Is there anything you want to add on to the tips around building a competitive university profile that we haven't talked about yet?
You go ahead, Leslie.
I mean, you might have covered it all. I'm just, just double checking.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to share with families is, so Oxford and Cambridge have this wonderful link where they basically share like what they call subject-specific resources for kids to extend themselves, what they call like supercurricular activities. And how that's different than extracurricular activities is that supercurricular activities are things that help extend your academic interest, right? And so I think that those are sometimes important as well, because if a kid is, let's say, wants to study history, well, you could do a lot of extracurricular activities that are unrelated to history, but it's also nice to see something that is kind of related to that, whether that be research or whether that be starting, some honor society at school that focuses on history and getting kids interested in history or whatever, but something that kind of shows how you want to extend yourself in that academic subject in the future is also quite interesting. And you can find that stuff online. I can even share this in some chat box later.
Ooh, pop it in the comments. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, very helpful. Any of your tips, Leslie, just pop them in there. Great. And Justin, did you have anything else to add? We've covered a lot, so no pressure.
We have covered a lot. No, and this is a testament to Leslie and her knowledge on these topics and her experience with these families and students and understanding exactly how each and every child is unique and different. And asking questions and being open and transparent is the best way as a parent to really be honest and help that child figure out what it is with the help of a university guidance counselor like Leslie. It's wonderful.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I do want to just ask the readers too, if you have any questions on this topic, which is building the university profile, or any of the topics around university prep, Excel, any of the topics for Leslie and Justin, feel free to ask now. but also leave comments because we're going to keep them around for a couple of days. So we'll make sure to get back to those. Do we have any questions? I'll just double check out here as well. Okay, this is a good one. What are the most common pathways students pursue after graduating XCL World Academy? Real world stories.
Well, I'll go ahead and answer that. So we do have kids that are PR. So I'll first talk about the kids that have to go serve national service. So we do have kids that are Singaporean and PR, and so they will have to serve their mandatory national service. And so we also work with them on sort of their application timeline because it's a little bit different given that some universities don't allow for admission deferrals. And so we work with those kids that are going to NS. So that's one group. I would say for our school, we're pretty split between the different countries. So the majority of our kids go off to university right away. In terms of countries, ours are US, UK, Canada, Netherlands, Australia, and Singapore. So those are kind of our big countries. But our kids actually apply all over the world and in all different subjects. And I think very similar, because I've also worked in Hong Kong before at another school in Singapore. I think this is what makes international college admissions quite interesting, is that kids apply in multiple countries. So you're not going to see, well, most kids, you won't see, I'm just going to look at the US or I'm just going to look at Canada. You usually see sort of 3 different countries. And so there's always usually like a strategy behind that too. Like US is going to be my reach, and then Canada is like my target, and then Singapore, so there's sort of like a strategy behind it. But that's what a lot of our kids do.
Okay. Excellent. Well, it looks like we're coming up to an hour, which is fantastic. We had a lot to share. I just want to thank you guys so much, Leslie and Justin. Again, love the passion, and you can really feel what the school does for their families over at XCL World Academy. So super helpful. I do want to remind parents that you guys have open houses coming up. So May 21st and June 4th. You'll see it on the screen there, but we'll also put the information to the video as well as the comments. You can sign up and really get to see the campus and meet more of the team over there. The other thing, which obviously is summer ready, is the giveaway that XCL World Academy has donated, which is the summer camps. And Justin, I know you're quite involved in the summer camps, so maybe could you just tell us a little bit about the summer camps?
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, this is my first year here, so I have yet to experience one. But we do offer a wide variety of camps. One that we just discussed, we're looking into a little bit, is some robotics and AI. We have English, listening, speaking, reading, and writing support programs. There's a whole host, and a great way to find that, in fact, is on our website, where you can find a lot more information about what is offered and during which weeks of the summer. So I would recommend taking a look there.
Excellent. And for everybody, they're giving away one voucher worth Singapore $650 to one lucky winner, and that's for a camp. So we will put more information, but all you have to do is leave a comment or a question right below. You can do it now, you can do it later, and we will be announcing that winner next week. So thank you again, Leslie and Justin. I will pop up some of the reminders after we say goodbye, and thank you, Little Steps readers, for joining the webinar today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.